how do you think Kemba is going to fit with the Jays here? Because it is going to be interesting when Tatum is back, what this is going to look like. And we'll get into this a little bit later too. Kyrie in his second game back, no Durant tonight, but the Nets drop a second straight to Cleveland. So they're experiencing some growing pains, having three people who need the ball in their hands. And also suffering on the defensive end. It's actually interesting, the parallels between these teams right now, even though the talent level on Brooklyn is hard to ignore. But Bobby, you wrote about it. To talk about that, how do you think this fits Kemba into this offense when Jaylen and Jayson are here?
Well, it's going to go one of two ways. You could potentially split usage between those three, like 25, 25, 25, which probably isn't going to happen because you want Tatum above 30 there. I'm interested to see how the balance between Kemba and Jaylen's going to go because, no one's going to question Tatum having all the usage, all the ball time there. But last year, if you look at the numbers, and we saw it visually during the playoffs as well, when that starting five was together, Jaylen was occasionally just a, tick behind everybody else on the offense, occasionally smart as well, which was the worry last year. That doesn't seem as much of a worry now that he's going to be able to get ahead of Smart. Smart is embracing kind of that fourth role now, taking less than 10 shots a game. But I don't want him to fall back to 24 where he was last year. If he can stay...
Smart took 17 shots today.
Yeah, but, they don't have Tatum. So you're going to have three guys over 10.
Yeah.
But it's something to watch for sure. Now, I love the way Brown and Kemba are playing off each other now. The easy solution is to give them all their own bench minutes with players alongside them on the bench. And luckily, Semi and others have been good enough to make that work this year until tonight. But it's a worthy question because what did we just say for a whole segment there? Feed Brown, feed Brown, feed Brown. There's those nights where he's 6 for 8, 8 for 10. And you're like, if he had 8 more shots, he'd be able to hit a good percent of those. And, he makes the best use of those possessions. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? Because I don't think anyone's freaking out about Kemba taking a bunch of shots either. He's incredibly efficient and a great playmaker and dominant in pick and roll.
I mean, I'm a little worried.
We know John's thoughts.
No, I mean, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt because ultimately I think you would rather have talent and then figure it out than have not talent and have to figure. We've seen the problem of having to deal with not talented players and how difficult that is for Brad right now. We've got the Celtics have problems between Grant, Thompson struggling right now. Semi used sparingly. Javonte probably playing more minutes than he needs to, even though I think he's played really well. So that's a bigger headache than trying to figure out how to incorporate a player of Kemba's caliber. However, I am definitely a little worried on the fit here, and I'm starting to wonder whether or not he's better in a microwave, not Vinnie Johnson microwave role, but I'm starting to wonder how this would look potentially off the bench. With Kemba,
would never happen.
No,
and it will never happen. And honestly, this is crazy talk because we're talking about we're worried about the fit. First of all, these guys played together last year, and they played pretty damn well, and when they were all healthy.
But that was the issue, though. Like, if there was any issue, it was that.
What it was? What?
The balance of the shots, the ball time.
Fine, but Bobby, this is the NBA. I mean, you want to talk about a league that needs stars, superstars. What did the Nets just do? They had a chance to go out and blow up their team and get James Harden. You think they're worried about how it's going to work, how it's going to fit?
I do think they're a little worried.
Okay, but they weren't worried enough to not do it, right? That's my point. So you can't spin this saying, Kemba coming back might actually be a bad thing for the Celtics. The Celtics.
No, I didn't say bad.
Not a bad thing, but that's essentially. I mean, that's essentially.
No, I'm just wondering. Look, it's the same way. It's the same logic, Jimmy. Behind.
I know you're not saying it's a bad thing, but John, you kind of alluded to the point where maybe he's better coming off the bench. But it's like he's too good to come off the bench. You have to find a way to make it work, and I don't think it means that it's going to hinder Jayson. Listen, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum and Kemba Walker all can't go out and score 40 points a night. They're going to have to figure out how to get each other involved. One night it's going to be one guy, one night's going to be the other. I think Kemba Walker might take a back seat a little bit points-wise, certainly, because of the emergence of Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum as well. And I think he's the type of guy that's okay with that. I think that may even be one of the reasons why Danny Ainge brought him in, not just for what he can do off the court, but his on the court, but his personality, his team first mentality, and his willingness to maybe watch Jayson Tatum, not watch and do nothing, but allow those guys to grow in a way that maybe Kyrie Irving wasn't so into doing, as we can probably guess, right? I mean, certainly we don't think Kyrie Irving and Terry Rozier got along. And it sounded like, listen, maybe they get along now, but the way Jaylen Brown was talking last year, it didn't seem, or not last year, 2 years ago, it didn't seem like he was a huge Kyrie Irving fan either. This isn't a Kyrie Irving bashing segment. It's a pro Kemba Walker segment that I think that he's the type of player that can allow those guys to grow and, help the team win, and he can be a part of it.
No, and I don't want to insinuate that this is a problem at all. Having all three of them, having the opportunity to sprinkle them across bench lineups and always have one of them on the floor. When all three of them are back, there isn't going to be a second in the game that Brown, Tatum, and Kemba isn't on the floor. And that's going to solve a lot of the bench issues that we're seeing right now. It's just the aggregate's going to add up. They're all going to get their shots over the course of the season. They're all going to have great seasons. There'll just be those certain nights in the playoffs, if they don't work this out perfectly before then, that you might see Brown have 8 shots and just kind of take a few corner threes here or there. And you want to set him up. I think what's good, though,
we're past that. We can't have that anymore.
You can't. But what I do think is good is Brown's such a great off-ball player. And this is where he killed Simmons in the series, too, especially on Wednesday. He'll get himself great shots, not being on the ball, too. He shoots well off the catch, across the three-point line. His cuts are amazing. And what's the difference right now between Kemba in the playoffs? You guys have emphasis too. And Kemba now is that Kemba looks great, bouncier, making plays. If that's the Kemba on the ball and you get Brown's best off the ball, it works because those are their strengths. Like Brown came up being a great off-ball player. Ideally, you'd love to empower him, but if Kemba's rolling, Brown's rolling, Tatum's rolling, it's all going to fall into place. But the question's Kemba, if he's not himself. That's the question we've been asking all year.
That's the question. But you know what? I'm getting a lot closer to apology cam by the game because he's looking better and better. There's no
his
signs.
Pick and roll is just.
Yeah, there's listen, for me right now, it's just how does he look out there? Is he moving the way that we know he can move, that we've seen him move in the past? If he doesn't have the greatest shooting night, I'm not concerned about that. It's all lower body to me. I want to see how he's moving. That's it. I want to see if he needs to get the next game off, or if he needs to have his minutes limits, or if he's stretching on, if it looks like he's not playing 100%. And right now, I don't see any of that stuff. So
I don't either.
I'm fine with. I'm actually. I'm happy to be wrong if that's where this is heading. So
you mentioned this too, Jimmy, just a minute ago. He's going to encourage Brown too, and this is what I love about him. Like, this is the rare attribute of him, is that he comes out after Sunday and says, Brown's just got to keep being super aggressive. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to play hard. I'm going to shoot my open shots, but he's killing it. I don't want him to think that just because I'm back, he can't keep killing it, because he can. That's what I'm here for, to continue to encourage him to be great. I love a quote like that. We get in the cliches all the time and what these quotes mean, but Kemba does seem to embody that, the way he plays and the way he approaches things.
No doubt about it. I mean, and like, we made fun of all of the over reporting of Cam Newton and his attitude and his smile with the Patriots this year, but Kemba's kind of darling. Kemba's got that thing. I mean, he shines it on, certainly, with the smile, but you always do feel it's genuine. I mean, every single thing we talked about with him last year, it was almost like he was like sent to Boston to not be Kyrie Irving. Like, it was every single thing he did, said, the way he took accountability for things after, the way he always gave credit to his teammates. Nobody's going to question that. The attitude is awesome. And he's just a guy people like having around. It's just the basketball fit at this point. As the Jays continue to evolve and the need for them to have the ball in their hands all the time becomes apparent, then you're asking a person who's done one thing his entire career to do something else. But the problem is, when he's of greatest value is when he's got the ball in his hands and just kind of going and being instant offense on his own. So that's kind of the dilemma, is you can't really ask him to do something else, because then he's not going to be the same player.
So no, you're right. But again, it almost goes back to an extent, I guess, kind of what Jaylen Brown is like. We didn't really know what he was capable of fully, and then he added sort of to his game later. So maybe there's more to Kemba Walker's game, that he'll be able to grow that we didn't necessarily know he had because he was never really asked to do it. On the other hand, if Kemba Walker keeps playing the way he is and showing that he's healthy, listen, we know Danny Ainge will trade anybody, right? I mean, aside from maybe a couple guys, but my point is he's certainly not scared to make a deal, and if another team feels that Kemba Walker is now healthy enough where they can make a trade for him,
That's
and
a
the trade
great
is
question.
there, I mean, you can't rule that out now. The whole thing was getting Kemba Walker back on the
A
court.
Kemba trade?
Yeah, you can't rule it. I mean, the whole thing was you couldn't trade Kemba because he's hurt and he's never going to be the same, and he has a degenerative knee issue. Well, hold on. Now, maybe that was a little too much pushing the panic button. Maybe he is going to be okay, and now maybe he's Kemba Walker again, and maybe like you're saying, John, he just doesn't fit.
I'll say this. If you're doing that, it's for the long term and you're sacrificing now, and we would lose our minds, or at least I would, because if
I'm not vouching for it. I'm just giving you different, reasons why it's, different, I guess, possibilities with the reemergence of a healthy Kemba Walker. Worst case, he's healthy and playing well, but like, you guys are, or what John's kind of saying is he needs the ball more. He needs to be a scorer, and he can't really, he can't really, show his worth with his current roster. Well, maybe he would want to be traded too. I don't know.
If there is another team that would need a Kemba Walker, a primary ball, a scorer, more than they need something else, then yes. I can't off the top of my head think of matches here. I still think he's too much of an injury risk. The fact that he's an older, smaller player, I don't see Kemba really having trade value. So I think that the thing you have to do here is just figure out just the fit on the court. And it might just be they're the best players. You put them out there and you'll figure it out because ultimately that's what you've got. And it maybe takes a little bit of time, but I desperately don't want to see the ball come out of, when Tatum's on the floor, I already don't like how Jaylen can sometimes disappear in games just because of Tatum's presence. And it's not anything Tatum's doing wrong. It's just sometimes what he needs to do to be him. And then when you throw in the occasional Marcus Smart hero ball or Tristan getting the ball in the lane and thinking maybe I should shoot too, and you have 5, 6, 7 trips down the floor where Jaylen's not touching the ball at all. I hate that,
So this comes down to how good Kemba is going to be in that role. Because if he's better in that role than Brown is, and he's rolling the way we're seeing it right now, then it's fine because they both fall into place. But he does have to shift to this eventually. He's here till 2023. He's not going to be ahead of Brown for all of those years, and he's going to have to find where he can fit in alongside those two if he is going to be here for the rest of the contract.
Again, little bit of recency bias. This, Kemba Walker, cardiac Kemba, has made a career on hitting massive, massive, massive shots late in games.
Look, I love Kemba.
But John, I know you do, but you're almost comparing like, oh, I don't want Kemba to have the ball late in the games, just like I don't want Marcus Smart to have the ball late in games.
The other guy not to have the ball.
Kemba's going to have the ball late in the game.
But there are going to be points where he's going to have the ball late in the games, and he might miss it, but that doesn't mean it was the wrong idea or the wrong play. Like,
on this show, it does.
We all have to assume that Kemba Walker is going to be on the court late in games, and he's going to get the ball at some point. Having one more guy in the court that can hit a massive shot is a good
big deal.
It's a good thing. I don't want him on the bench. So again, we want to talk about, should he start? Should he sit? It doesn't matter because at the end of the game, he's going to be on the court. And if the ball's up in his hands, I'm okay with that.
No doubt about that. Late in the game is totally different than everything else.
Right.
It doesn't matter either.
You do wonder whether you create more situations throughout the first 3.5 quarters of a game where you have two of those guys on the floor a lot of times, and sometimes one, and not as much all three. That's all. And I could see that happening a little bit more where you do kind of manage the situations there where you've got a couple of them or one of them on at all times with other people. So, there's always one of the knocks on Jaylen before was not able to create his own offense. He was more of a, stand in the corner, knock down the jumpers, but he wasn't able to do it consistently on his own. Now you really do have three guys who can generate offense at any point in time if you put the ball in their hands, and that is a luxury. You've lost Hayward and his ability to do that, but Jaylen's ascension right now, you put the ball in their hands and you feel pretty good as long as you got one or two of those guys on the floor at all times.